Hi guys, how are you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about three things. One is the EVH 5150 Iconic and its two preamp tubes. We're going to discuss why it's got two preamp tubes. The second thing we're going to talk about is my new EP. I'm going to give you a little update, a quick update on it. And we're also going to talk about Stacey Guant, who is doing some of the vocals for me. She's a guest vocalist on the EP. We're going to talk about her and I'm going to show you exactly what her voice can do in this video. The third thing that we are going to talk about in this video is the shortage of guitars that we may actually experience this year. So first of all, let's talk about the EVH Iconic. It's the new 5150 amp from EVH, and I've done a couple of videos on it now, just talking about it because mine hasn't arrived yet. They're not over here in the UK yet. I've heard March is when they're going to arrive. That's probably when you'll see it from me. Yeah, this video I actually wanted to do a while ago, but I didn't do it because there was too much talk about the amp and not enough playing. I mean, I guess it's a bit different from my channel because this channel is heavily based around EVH gear, so I guess I'm bound to cover news and stuff from the EVH camp, I guess. But I just felt that it all went a bit crazy, you know. I mean, when the first video I ever did, I said I've never known any amp be released ever and cause, you know, be talked about and anticipated as much as the EVH Iconic, and it all revolved around the two preamp tubes and been made in China and all that business. Yeah, it went a bit mental, especially on YouTube. People were falling out left, right and centre. Guys that don't use it, don't want to use it, don't like it, don't have any intention of using it or buying it, started making videos about the amp just because it was trending. So by trending we mean that, like, every time you mention the amp you're going to get views on it, or was back then a few weeks ago. Automatically you'd get views on it because you'd mentioned EVH Iconic in the title, and it was pulling in viewers and subscribers. So a lot of guys who have no intention of owning that amp or ever playing it or using it or liking it or whatever, for whatever reason, started making videos on it. I was getting spammed on my channel by this guy who was actually playing a normal PV 5150 on his video. Claimed to be a studio, and it was just a guy basically in his bedroom with loads of amps, you know, didn't mic anything properly or anything, played a guitar out of tune, and he started playing a regular 5150 and the title was 5150 Iconic. So that's how bad it was getting for guys that were desperate for views. So anyway, in this video we're going to talk about the two preamp tubes, and James Brown basically designed this amp and had to design it on a budget, but it also had to do all the things what Eddie wanted it to do and all the things that Eddie wanted the amp to be. So I guess there was a lot of pressure on James Brown, and that's why a lot of people are jumping to the guy's defense, because he's created a great amp. It sounds great to me. I don't know what everyone who's listening to doesn't like it, but we don't all like the same things. That's fair dues. But you know, he's under a lot of pressure, that guy, and obviously with Eddie passing away as well, he wanted to fulfill Eddie's last amp creation, last amp wish, or whatever you want to call it. I wanted to succeed at that. So behind me here I have a little piece of information that I'm going to read to you guys. This is from the 7 String forum, which I used to be on. You know, there's a lot of guys on there, amp builders and engineers, you know, sound engineers, recording artists, and this was a place where everybody used to hang out back in the day. You know, Fluff, the first time I ever spoke to Fluff, he was in here, I think. And I used to be in there a lot. I need to get back into it actually, because you can really learn quite a lot of stuff in there, and I wouldn't even know how to mic a camera or anything if I hadn't ever been in this place. So yeah, it's really good. And in here basically James Brown explains why the Iconic has two preamp tubes, how he basically decided on which bits didn't necessarily need to be in the amp or not. And I think it's very innovative, and I think you're going to see more of this by other brands who may copy this and think, you know what, we can remove all this stuff as well. So anyway, we're going to read about this now. I'm going to read this out to you, sorry, what James Brown said. And it starts off by answering this guy who asked about the two preamp tubes, and he just says this: how about if I explain it? The first tube stage amplifies a relatively low guitar signal up to the level where tubes generally operate and start to clip. So the first tube gives you the volume. Obviously when you plug a guitar straight into something, it's just a low signal. The first tube job is to amplify that. So it only clips if you drive it really hard, like cranking a tube screamer output into it. So basically if you enhance your guitar's signal with something else that can produce gain or volume, then you will work that first preamp tube a lot harder. That's what he's just explaining there. I used a high voltage transistor circuit with some tricks to make sure even at that point it breaks up like a tube and puts out the same voltage level as the replaced tube. So basically the first tube that is not there, he has put his own little transistor circuit in there that he believes works and produces exactly the same effect as what that first tube would produce. And obviously because he's not using a tube circuit and he's using a transistor circuit, it makes it more affordable. So he's taken out what he believes he didn't need, and he believes he could replicate with his own transistor circuit. So that makes sense for the start. But sure, different tubes make a big difference when you swap that first one, but that's because it's changing two stages, the one before and after the gain. So in this case, that second stage is still a tube stage. I just replaced the first one, which operates channel 1 and 2 input stages independently on all EVH models. This is the one that squeals the easiest. Some of you will already know this, but the first preamp tube is just for the input stage. It's just to amplify the guitar and send it through the following tubes, you know, the following gain stages. So he's basically replaced that with a transistor circuit. So then he goes on further and says, after the first stage is where all the EQing and distortion actually happens, and those next tubes and their associated parts are much more important to how the amp distorts, cleans up, sustains, punches and just chunks those tubes and the other parts of the circuit that are involved with those tubes. They basically set the flavour, the tone, the texture of the amp, the feel of the amp and all those things, and those are the two tubes which James Brown believes are most important, and those are the ones that he has kept. So that's cool. So that's how he's done it. So those are all still tubes, and you get the same type of gain and tube compression, the same bias shifting when you hit hard, and what I call the squawk of the preamp tube. So yeah, your strings, the reason we like tube amps as guitarists is because they're expressive. Hit hard, it comes out and pokes you and bites you. If it's a good tube amp, it comes out and pokes you, bites you, you know. If it's if you hit lightly, the note is not as loud and it's softer. You know, this kind of thing doesn't happen as much with solid state amps. So yeah, he's left those two tubes, that's what they're responsible for. And then he goes on to say, sure, the phase inverter would be nice to be tube 2, but if you're trying to meet a price point, you've got to figure out what's the most important and what's less important. So I whittled it down to the absolute most important two preamp tubes. Like people saying, why can't you foot switch the overdrive? I need to move to the next piece. So people saying, why can't you foot switch the overdrive on channel 1? Well, I could have put that in there, but it would only work with an extra gain or volume for that and added relays instead of the simple voicing switch. So that's a lot more money. So basically there was a cost issue that he decided to put these buttons and switches in with the boosts on and also voicing switches like he did with the custom amp that he did. Is it the Iron Cross, I think it was called, or something like that. He did that there, full of switches and all kinds of things where you could tweak the tone and the feel of the amp. He's done it on this amp to save money rather than putting extra tubes in. So yeah, the goal was a 2-channel amp, and I put those voicing switches in so people could decide what they wanted the 2 channels to be. The transistor input allowed me to set up the boost foot switch to actually provide about 8 decibels more input boost too. So you can get 4 different gain amounts by using that in conjunction with the channels. So it worked out with the boost and with the voicing switches. You can get 4 tones out of the amp, 4 different, completely different tones from what I've heard online. 4 tones out of the amp, even though it's only a 2-channel amp. And a lot of amps actually do that anyway. They share circuits and stuff like that, so I don't see the difference there. Having built a bunch of successful solid state preamp pedals in the last 10 years, I agree with, if it sounds good, who cares? Or the version Ed used to say, if it sounds good, it is good. So there you go. That's it. Let me know what you think about all that. I think it's really good that James Brown explains exactly what he's done. Not exactly what he's done, but he explains how and why he's designed the amp the way he has. And you know, like I say, it sounds great to me. It sounds more gainy on some modes than actually EVH 5153s that have tons of gain, and on other modes it sounds more clear and more growl and grunt, and it has that mid-range what some guitarists may be scared of using, and it's a mid-range what a lot of guitarists like myself crave for, because it's what you need when you're in a studio or a live mix or any mix with anything. You know, an amp can feel nice in the bedroom, you can dial it in nice with no mids and it can feel great to play through and really fluid. When you use the mids it becomes a bit harder to play, but from what I've heard about the Iconic players are saying it has got a lot of mids, so you can cut in a mix, but also it seems really easy to actually play through, which is great because it is a budget amp and it is aimed at guys that probably aren't used to playing through you know, tube amps. It is a different learning curve when you go from a 15-watt practice amp in your bedroom to a proper tube amp. It's a learning curve, hitting notes hard, trying to emphasize your playing, trying to be a bit more diverse and a bit more put a bit more into the guitar to get more out the other end. That's kind of what tube amps are all about. So yeah, that's that, and I hope that helps, and I really want to get that read out, but I've chosen to do it now because of all the ridiculous Iconic, EVH Iconic posts and arguments and stuff that's gone on everywhere. I thought I'd wait till everything died down, and I'm actually really glad that my amp is turning up in March or whenever now, because everything will have died down and I'll feel a bit more fresh about the whole thing. I just want to play the amp, riff on the amp, and let you guys see what you think. So that's that. The next thing I want to talk about now is my EP. So basically my EP it's going to be about 7 songs I think in the end, and a lot of the tracks you will have heard snippets of on my demos, because although this isn't really me writing an EP, when I write a demo for Jackson Guitars EVH amps, 2 notes, speakers, whatever 2 notes IRs, sorry, I'm writing these demos, and if I like the vibe, I try and make them quite song-like, although they're very riffy, and I just thought, well, you know what, I'm going to do longer versions of these tracks and make them into songs and get some cool vocalists to sing on them. Marc X is working on 1 track for me right now, hopefully. Stacey Guant is a very busy lady, but she's getting round to writing stuff, and I'm really excited about working with Stacey. And when I actually messaged her, I didn't think for 1 minute. I've known about it for years through my mate Rob Hobson, actually. You know, she was an extremely talented vocalist, you know, like she's a proper vocalist. She's not like someone who's just giving it a bit of a go. She is extremely talented, and her voice has a few different styles that she can do, and they're all good, but it's an extremely pure, it's just a beautiful voice. She's just a great singer. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you Stacey now. I'm going to search her up and I'm going to play some of her stuff. If you want to follow her, she has got a YouTube channel. I don't think she does that much on it at the moment, mainly because she's busy. What's that crap? Mainly because she's busy. What the? Well, that's not her. Jake Mann is doing the guitar here. So yeah, you can hear there why I'm so excited about working with her. Her voice is just, it's got like a perfect, it's so clear and it's crystal clear. It's just a perfect voice, but she can do other things as well. But this is with Jake Mann. Quick shout out to Jake Mann, whoever he is. I don't know who he is. I've heard him before. I wonder if he's on my Facebook or something. Sounds a great guitar player. Obviously she's doing a cover here. Her YouTube is Broken Piano. She plays piano too, and I've just messaged her now, and she won't play the piano on my EP, bless her, because she hasn't got time, she says. But she is extremely busy. She teaches, if anyone who's learning to sing, you know, she does lessons and things like that. I mean, I'd really like to do some lessons with her, but I can't bloody, my singing's dreadful. Like, I can't sing in tune, can't sing in key at all. It's just embarrassing, so I can't be singing to her, you know, and like embarrassing myself. But I'd love to learn to sing myself. So this is called Dust. This is one of her tracks she did on her own. She's wandering about in the forest on this one by the look of it. Let's fast forward to some singing. So this is like an electronic thing. She can just do anything or sing anything. So yeah, I'm going to stop her now. Sorry, Stace. I'm really, really happy about working with her and getting her to do this on the piano. And I've wanted to work with a female vocalist for quite a while. I'm doing TMB project with Jojo, obviously, who's like a rap, a shouted rapper with a bit of attitude and stuff, and that's something different. And I'm working with Stacey too on the EP. I'm going to see how many songs I can get to do. I think I've sent her about 4 actually. I proper bombed her with loads and loads of songs one day, but she's got quite a few to do. Poor lass. So the third thing that I wanted to talk about in this video is the guitar shortage, and you're probably wondering what I'm talking about, but I don't know whether you've noticed, well, you have noticed, most of you, but if you order a guitar or anything like that that requires a lot of components, a lot of parts from different places, so when you order a guitar, there's pickups, you know, all the pots, tuning pegs, fret wire, nuts, inlays, there's all these different components that go into a guitar. And basically, because of COVID, the pandemic has affected the production of everything, particularly things like guitars that have a lot of components involved in them. And basically, amps, the same thing. You know, people are getting sick of waiting for their stuff, what they order. Sometimes it can be up to a year if you're pre-ordering something that's brand new out. But the reason there's a shortage is because obviously everyone's down on staff, you know, with COVID. You get COVID and you've got to isolate and whatever else. And it's just affected production so bad, but not only has it affected the production of, say, things like pickups and the bass plates in pickups and things like that. There was a massive shortage of those at one point. But it's not just things like that it's affected. It's affected then when the actual product is made, it's affected the transportation of the product from A to B, because obviously there's a lack of drivers, and the whole thing is a mess. And I do believe that this year we may run out, you know, some brands will run out of guitars. I did read somewhere that the CEO of Fender had actually said, we are concerned, you know, that Fender are going to run out of guitars basically this year. But you just got to be patient, you know, order that guitar and just wait and make sure that you make. It's more important to make the right choice and the right decision when you're ordering a new product, especially as a musician now, than it ever has been before, because you've got a longer wait and you need that wait to be worth it. So you don't want to be ordering something and when it comes not like it and then deciding to send it back and then ordering something else and then waiting another year, or that new guitar that you wanted could take 2 years. So that's why it's important that we get our gear choices right this year more than ever. The brands that hit hardest with this will be the brands that have really killed it in 2021 and 2020. Jackson Guitars, for me, obviously I'm an endorsed artist, so I'm going to talk about things I know more about them than any other brand. Basically, they killed it. They did a killer year in 2020, and I bought more guitars in 2020 and 2021 than I've ever bought, ever. Just because they brought out that many killer guitars, and they couldn't make them fast enough as it was, never mind with all the COVID situation. So there has been a long wait. The Brandon Ellis's one guitar in particular, they maybe didn't even expect it to do as well as it did, but it really took off, did the Brandon Ellis. And I think I got 189k views the other week on the Brandon Ellis. Absolutely blown me away, that video. And I just think that guitars like that come out and are unexpectedly popular, or at least more popular than they would have thought they would, the brands thought they would have been, are going to be even more in demand, and obviously even harder to produce the amounts that they need to. So yeah, there probably will be a guitar and amp shortage later on in 2022, like some of the CEOs at brands are saying. But be wise, make the right decision when you're buying the amp or buying the guitar. Let me know what you think about all this stuff. Let me know what you think of Stacey's vocals. I think it's a really interesting project to be working on with somebody with vocal quality as good as and as high standard as she's got. And let me know what you think about the 2 preamp tubes and what James Brown said. Thanks very much for watching. Sorry it's been a long one, and I'll see you all soon with some new music and some new gear.